Alright guys, after the last tier list video that you really liked, I wanted to make this tier list video for a while, which is the most fun decks to play tier list. I have a lot of decks right here, as you can see by scrolling down further. We are going to discuss a lot of decks. I'm not going to be, for a long while on any deck, but I will obviously explain to you why I think this deck is fun or not. We have most fun, we have mid, we have boring, and then we have too little experience, which might be the decks which I can't really say anything to because I really have too little experience in playing with it or playing against it. And I will also explain to you why I like certain decks or why I don't like certain decks. Let's start right here and you will see what I mean. We have Vanadium here, a deck that is definitely a bit older, but you can still play. I think it is kind of boring. And here's the first thing that is in my subjective experience of a boring deck. I think that combo decks in general are more boring decks and that interactive decks are the more fun decks. Interactive decks being decks that don't play the same all the time, that don't have a really long combo, and that can also play kind of good going second, because if a deck can play good going second, that means that you will also have fun games when you lose the coin toss and not only when you can go first. Then we have Goblin Bikers, and that's another thing, also artwork. Well, artwork is a big thing for me. For example, the Goblin Biker artworks I didn't really like. I don't think the deck is boring. I think it's kind of a mid deck, honestly. Then we have this Void deck here, which I can't really, I'm always blanking on the name. For me personally, I think it's kind of boring. Then again, you are milling a lot, and milling is always kind of nice because milling means randomness, and randomness normally means fun. Because with randomness, that means that your games will look a bit different every time that you play. Then we have Spiritual Beast, Ritual Beast here. I think Ritual Beast was kind of a mid deck, definitely better than Goblin Biker. It was a heavy combo deck, but the combo was not super linear, so that with different starters, you needed to do different combos, and you also needed to know how to play through specific stuff. So I think this made it more interactive, made it more fun than like a pure combo deck. We had Pearly, which I think was... this is a bit tricky with Pearly because they end up on like an unbeatable boss monster, which is definitely not fun. But the deck in and of itself with its mechanic was kind of nice. So I think this is the first one that I am going to put in the fun category. But normally decks with like a boss monster that is not killable is not that great for having a fun gameplay. Then again, you have to say that with Pearly, this boss monster could be outed. So you could either decide whether you want to keep your material under your boss monster to make it unaffected, or you could also use the materials to spin back your opponent's cards, where then the deck is way more interactive and is way more fun. We have Heroes, which is from an artwork perspective pretty cool, but is kind of like a really boring combo deck in my opinion, and definitely not as bad as the other ones here, so I'll put it above them, but I really don't like Heroes. We have Fiendsmith, which I think the Fiendsmith engine is actually kind of a fun engine, and that obviously you can play on its own, but normally you will put into other decks, but the engine is kind of nice. It has recursion, it's not too unfair. I think artwork wise, Fiendsmith is very nice. I think I will also put it over Pearly here. We have Duel, which honestly, this was a deck I personally didn't really like. I was kind of hyped when it came out, but then I didn't really enjoy playing it. It is a combo deck, not as crazy as other combo decks, for example Vanadium, but for some reason, and I can't really explain why, I didn't really like it. Trap Tricks, in the beginning when I was back in the TCG, I bought 3 Trap Tricks decks and played it. I think it was kind of like a mid-fun deck. Normally, trap decks are not that interesting because, you just set your traps, but then I guess you also have to, decide on when you want to interact with them, so you could make an argument for them being a bit more dynamic than other decks. Going second, it's normally pretty hard with trap decks, but I think Trap Tricks was kind of nice. Super Heavy Samurai, I honestly hated the deck. A very, very heavy combo deck ending on like also generic boss monsters. This is another point. If a deck ends on its own boss monsters, that's kind of cool, but here with the generic Baron de Fleur stuff, I think this is pretty boring and not very interactive. I think that the Judgment Dragon, the Lightsworn stuff is kind of fun because this is like Tearlaments, where you are milling a lot, and milling means once again randomness, and randomness means replayability, which means that every game is kind of like unlike the other games because it depends on what you mill when it comes to what you can do on your turn, and I think this makes the deck kind of fun. We have Salamangreat, which cool from an artwork perspective, and the combo was not as linear in my opinion. This is kind of like a mid deck in my opinion, yeah, but definitely not one of the more fun ones. Dragon Link, which will be playable again with the new support from Burst Protocol, I think personally was kind of fun. It is just like a combo deck, but I really personally, obviously, liked the dragon stuff in here. So yeah, I enjoyed playing this, but I can definitely understand that people who are like combo deck haters don't really like it. Rescue Ace, for some reason, I was pretty hyped and then ended up not liking it at all. You always go for the same line, you always go for the Rescue Ace Turbulence, set 4, and then pass over basically. And yeah, later on they got the Book of Moon guy, for example, but I really didn't like the deck. It wasn't as bad as some of the other ones right here, but yeah, I was kind of hyped, but then I hated it. Then we have Ancient Gear, which going second decks I normally like because it's fun playing into a board, but Ancient Gear I definitely do not like, especially because of the artwork. I really don't enjoy the artwork of Ancient Gear, so this is also something that makes a deck fun or not fun for me. Definitely not as bad as the other decks right here, but not something that is for me. Floowandereeze, in the beginning I was playing Floowandereeze a lot, and I can't really say that Floowandereeze is like a boring deck. You have to make decisions when to flip the opponent stuff. Honestly, and this might be a bit controversial and crazy, I think this for me will land somewhere here at the bottom of the mid category. We have Kashtira, which Kashtira was, honestly, the thing with Kashtira is this was one of my favorite archetypes when it comes to the design. I really love the design of Kashtira, of the Kashtira cards. When it comes to the gameplay of Kashtira, it's pretty straightforward, pretty linear, so nothing too fancy. For me, it's personally somewhere here at the top of the mid category, just because I really loved the artwork. It's a very linear thing, the Kashtira cards, and if you have your boss monster on the field, which is like a Macrocosmos or a Floodgate, that's definitely not the most fun. Floodgates are definitely not fun because that's very uninteractive for your opponent, but also for yourself. If you, for example, flip a skill drain, then there's just a skill drain and there's no skill expression. You can't decide on what you want to basically negate, so this doesn't really work for me personally. We have this winged Baphomet, these I'm not quite sure how they call it, Chimera stuff here. I hated the Chimera stuff. Normally fusion stuff is pretty nice, but this Chimera stuff here is just, I don't know, I really hated it. I really hated the cards, I hated the combos. I cannot really say anything positive about it. Really not my cup of tea. We have Unchained, which honestly I loved Unchained. It's a very fun deck. Yeah, the combo is kind of similar every time, but I really liked the artwork. I really liked this destroy your own cards theme, and yeah, Unchained really worked out for me personally. But then again, it's pretty combo heavy, so this is more of an artwork thing for me personally. I really like Exorcisters once again because of the artwork. I think otherwise it's kind of like a boring deck, so for me it's somewhere here in the mid category because it's not super interactive. The combos are pretty straightforward, but I really liked the artwork here. We have the Dinosaur deck, which I always hated. I loved dinosaurs back in the day when I was a kid, but for some reason this dinosaur deck is just not for me. I also really don't like this one Triceratops guy, which makes basically all of your dinos unaffected. This is so boring. I hate it. Then we have Marincess here, which I never really played too much, so I think this I will put into too little experience. I know that is kind of like a heavy combo deck, and I also do not like the artwork, but I have never really played it myself, so I can't really say anything when it comes to Marincess. I loved Sprite, especially because of the artwork. Sprite is like pretty straightforward combo deck, but I think it got kind of so here's another thing for me, right? There are like these heavy interruptions, these easy interruptions like Baron de Fleur, just omni-negating something, and then you have this more layered interruptions, or these, let's call it more little interruptions, like here's a spell negate, here's a monster negate, or maybe you have when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can activate this effect. Afterwards, you can, I don't know, banish one card from your opponent's graveyard, which obviously is not something like Baron de Fleur negating a card, but you have to like plan your interruptions. And with Sprite, I think you had to plan your interruptions quite efficiently in order to win the game. And then once again, I really love the Sprite cards, one of my most favorite archetype when it comes to the artwork, and I definitely have to put this somewhere here for me personally. Then we have the Primate stuff. It's really tough to call this like the Primate deck because it never was a Primate deck. Then again, I think the Primate engine is kind of like a mid-engine. I like it from the artwork, but then again, it's not too interactive. You just do the same thing all the time. You just set your Lordly Load, set the Dribble and then reset it every time. So nothing too fancy, honestly. Vanquish Soul, we will have to see what lands on my most fun tier list, but I personally think that Vanquish Soul is one of the most fun decks in this game, and I'm so hyped for the new support. I'm also kind of hyped for the K9 support, Vanquish Soul K9 in the future, most likely in February. Go check out that video if you have not seen that video where I talk about the next packs, but I really love Vanquish Soul. There's so much to do. You can use these effects in your main phase to bounce back your Vanquish Soul cards, and then you have these strange interruptions, like your Raisin can destroy every monster in a column he is summoned in, so you have to decide on where to summon him, and then you can destroy a monster in the column, and you have the same thing for like a trap. Or you have the Mad Love, which can bounce the monster with the lowest defense points, which these are so like strange interruptions that you really have to plan carefully when to use them. And I really love this thing with the columns. I love that you can tag them out, and I loved that their effects rely on whether you have the attributes in the hand, like the Earth, Fire, and the Dark. This is one of the most fun decks in the game, and I can't wait for the Vanquish Soul support to come to Master Duel, hopefully in February. Then we have this Ragnar stuff, which honestly I have not much experience for, so I can't really say a lot when it comes to a pure Ragnar deck. From an artwork perspective, I don't really like it, but once again, too little experience here. Fire King, I think, is a very, very fun deck. For me personally, this is above like Light Swan. I really love how when stuff gets destroyed, you can summon your Fire King guys that can then like do other stuff. I think it's very, very creative. It's very interactive gameplay. Once again, these interruptions are not like super boring. Yes, you have your like Avatar Kirin guy, which is just a monster negate. Oh no, this is Kirin, right? How is the other one called? You have your Barong, which is the spell trap negate, and then the other one, which is the monster negate. Yes, that's not super interactive, but once again, I think the way this deck works with the destruction, with destroying the fire monsters, and then they trigger, you get your Garunix back and stuff. Very, very interesting and creative gameplay, and yeah, just a really fun deck. Then we have Raid Raptor. This is a good example of a deck that I find super boring. It's a combo deck, and it goes into like an unbeatable boss monster. This is the worst of the worst for me personally. Then we have Crimson stuff here. Never really liked the cards, also very combo heavy. Not a deck that I wanted to play in any world. Here's Snake Eyes. A lot of people hate Snake Eyes, I know that, but I think Snake Eyes was kind of like an okay deck when it came to fun, and for me personally, this goes somewhere here in the mid category. What I liked about Snake Eyes, in the beginning, I really liked to play the deck. It got old pretty soon, but I also really like the artwork, and I like their gimmick of putting stuff in the spell trap zone. This is really cool, I think, so I can't place it lower than mid. Then we have Swordsoul, which was one of the first decks I played. Very linear deck, so honestly, it's kind of like a boring deck, but Swordsoul is in my heart somewhere, so no hate against Swordsoul, but yeah, not the most fun deck. Let's put it over Heroes. I think Heroes I hate more. And then we have Voiceless Voice, which I bought in the TCG for a very expensive price and also played in Master Duel, obviously. Voiceless Voice is unfortunately kind of like a boring deck. Definitely like it more than all the other ones I have in here, but not super recommendable. The boss monster is pretty cool from an artwork perspective, though. Then we have, I hate this deck, this Atlantean deck here, which is a heavy combo deck. Can play quite nice going second, and also the combo lines can differ a lot. I think that for a lot of people this is not like a boring deck. I personally didn't like it, also because I really don't like this water theme, so for me this is not something I really wanted to play, but definitely not as bad as some of the other ones that I put here. I think I would like to play it somewhere around here, but once again I found it pretty boring. Then we have Dark World, which honestly Dark World can be kind of fun. It is a combo deck, but this also relies on what you draw. Your draws are random, but then you have a very, very uninteresting hand loop with the silver here, where you can rip cards from your opponent's hand, which I think is just the worst of the worst, unfortunately. So I can't really put it higher than something like, I don't know, maybe the Dino stuff. I would play this before I play the Dino stuff, honestly, and maybe even before I play the Ancient Gear stuff, but then we are kind of at the end of what I can take when it comes to the Dark World stuff. The fact that you loop your opponent's hand is so boring. Then Agro Stars, I'm too little experienced, but I saw this and I never really wanted to play it. But honestly, I don't really know how this plays. The monsters become trap cards, so maybe this is quite creative, but I can't really say anything. Then we have this Exodia Millennium stuff, and even though this is really, really boring in terms of how this works, because this works the same time every time, I personally really like that you play Exodia and also play the Exodia parts in the deck, and then you have these Exodia monsters. And once again, this is a boring deck in general. You can play Floodgates in it, but I honestly really liked playing with this deck. So I would put it somewhere here in the mid category, honestly. But yeah, for a lot of people, I think this is kind of boring, and I do understand. This is more like I really like playing the Exodia cards. Then we have this Jandora G Millennium. I hate this deck. I don't know. I really, this is another example of like an anime deck that this one I loved. This one I just hate. Yeah, I just can't stand to play and see this deck. Then we have Mimigul, which I have not really played a lot, but I think the deck is really cool. I think the fact that you set the monsters and then if they get flipped, they have effects. I think this is a very creative deck. And honestly, even though I have not really played it a lot, I have played against it quite a while. And I honestly, I think this will end up in the fun category for me personally. I'm not saying this is a strong deck, but I think this is a fun deck. Then we have Ryugi, which honestly, I don't know, I have not played a lot against it, have not played it myself, so can't really say anything. Then honestly, this is like Heroes. I will place it at the same category. This is Evil Heroes. You combine these, so to just place it in the same category. Then we have Crystron, which honestly, Crystron, I really enjoyed playing. Yes, this is a combo deck, and in the future you can play it with K9, but I really like the Crystron cards. Really liked how this worked. Honestly, a really cool deck, but mostly I guess because I like the cards. Then we have Drytron, which I never really liked. I honestly have to put this somewhere here in the bottom category. A friend of mine is a really big Drytron enjoyer. Don't like the cards, don't like the combo. Very boring deck for me. Then we have the Shark deck, which honestly I have too little experience with to say anything. Same goes for anything pretty XYZ related, but honestly these decks do not really look fun. Then we have this, I have already forgotten how this is called, this TCG exclusive Ascent deck, right? Ascent. So honestly, in terms of how this deck played, it was kind of fun. So I have to put it here in the mid category. It is a weak deck and I have not really played it a lot, but I think in terms of what this deck does, it's kind of nice. You have this guy that can be summoned to your opponent's field and then destroys the field, and you have this interaction with your field spell. You also have this monster in the end, the Vados, that can destroy your field spell and then be special summoned. So I think creative-wise, this is kind of nice. But yeah, once again, unfortunately not a very strong deck. Can't really recommend it. Here we have a pretty heavy combo deck in, how it is called, Sulfur Cord? No, there's no Sulfur Cord, but this is like the, how is this called? I'm blanking on this, but okay, I think people know what this is being called here, but I'm blanking on this. The with the Sonato, this music-based thing. Hated the theme with the music-based stuff. I really don't like pendulum stuff. So yeah, it's a combo deck. Honestly, I mean, they have this boss monster that can bounce cards, which I think is more interactive than, for example, a Baron de Fleur. For me personally, this was not really interesting, so I put it somewhere in the boring category. So now we come to a deck that's, yeah, we have branded here, and honestly, and if you can recognize that here, these are the decks now on that I had on my last tier list where I talked about the best decks for the Duelist Cup. So now come very strong decks, but let's see, we have branded here, right? And branded, honestly, is one of the most fun decks in the entire game for sure. We will have to place it later on here, rearrange the top and pick one most fun deck, but branded is just everything that is good with Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, you have a deck that you can only use this engine, so you don't need like non-engine cards to break an opponent's board going second, which is nice. So you have the ability to play second and have fun. You have a very nice going first deck, which is not unfair. It can do unfair things like locking your opponent, which then obviously is not that fun, but you have different hands that play out pretty differently depending on how you start. And yeah, you have oftentimes, and this is something that is so nice with Brandon, oftentimes you end up in these grind game situations. Same thing goes for Vanquish Soul, by the way. So decks that like put the game into a grind game state, where the games are long, where the games are complicated. This is what I love most. This is where I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is by far at its best. This is peak Yu-Gi-Oh! And Branded is just everything that is great with Yu-Gi-Oh! In my opinion. So let's see how this ends up in the end, basically. Also it only ends up on its own boss monsters, right? There is no Baron de Fleur. You have your branded boss monsters, and that is all that you use. It's perfect. This is just how every deck should work in an ideal world, in my opinion. Then we have Labyrinth, which honestly, Labyrinth is a really cool deck. I think it's very, very fun. We definitely have to place it in the fun category. Once again, when I thought about this before, I was thinking about putting like trap decks lower, but honestly, trap decks are kind of fun. I personally like them because because I think it's because trap decks are so different from the playstyle, right? So playing a trap deck is different from any other like combo deck, and it's also not a combo deck, right? This is the most important thing. Then once again, going second with trap decks is kind of annoying. This is the annoying part about trap decks, which is why they can't be placed as high as something like Branded or Vanquish Zone, in my opinion. Then we have Centurion, which the cards are really cool from an artwork perspective, but even though I got the deck, I never really liked it that much, honestly. Can't really tell you why, but I didn't. Also, the playstyle is quite unique. You have your monsters that are spells and traps and then can summon themselves out to place other spells and traps. The idea is pretty nice, I have to say. It's just, for me personally, I don't really like this. Also, you end up on a lot of generic synchro boss monsters, also on your boss monsters from the Centurion archetype. So I think a lot of people like the deck, and I can understand why, just not for me personally. We have Sky Striker, which is another very good example of a very fun Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I would definitely, even though I have not really played Sky Striker a lot, I have played against it a lot, and I can say this is a really, really fun deck. Would honestly place it somewhere around here. Now with the new support, you can go first, you can go second, you can do both, but this is just for you go second and then you try to break the board, and Sky Striker is pretty good at breaking the board. You really have to think about how you do things. It's different every time because it depends on what you draw and on what you draw into with your engages, with your upstart goblins. It's just every game feels kind of different playing against Sky Striker, and this is what I love. No long combo lines, extended games where you try to grind out your opponent. Same with Vanquish, so same with Branded. So all of the decks that I have here in the top category, at least these four here, are definitely grind game decks, which can make the game long, which can make game states that are complicated, and I love it. And then we have Tearlaments, which same thing goes for Tearlaments. I love the meta where we were all playing Tearlaments. This was so fun, and honestly, I have to place this somewhere here, maybe even above Vanquish. So honestly, it's still around, but it was definitely more fun when everybody was playing Tearlaments. I loved it. Maybe, okay, let's put it under Vanquish Zone, honestly, because here, same thing goes for what I think is most fun in Yu-Gi-Oh! Every game kind of goes different. Yeah, you do the same thing, you go for kit colors and so on and so forth, but you are milling, the mills are different, you mill from your opponent. This impacts the game different depending on what your opponent's deck is. And then you also had this ability to play on your opponent's turn, which I think is a very nice thing if it's not too broken. Obviously with triple halfness it was kind of broken, unfortunately. So if Konami manages to make this like a fair play on your opponent's turn, I really think this is nice and makes the game more interactive and more fun. Tearlaments was great. Tearlaments is a great deck, and yeah, I just have to place it up top here. Then we have Tenpai, which I personally played a lot and I kind of liked it, but let's be honest here, it's a pretty stupid deck. So even though I personally liked it, can't put it much higher than in the mid category here. From an artwork perspective, I think the Tempo Dragons are just cool and insane. Then Mathmech, I've played Mathmech a lot, but I can't really say that Mathmech belongs into the most fun category. For me, it's a very cool deck that I really love playing. I also like Cyber's decks, honestly, but it's like a mid deck. It's a very combo heavy deck. It's not that great going second, and it can also end up, it ends up on generic like Cyber's boss monsters, which for Cyber's might be okay. But personally, this is like a mid deck. It's okay, but nothing too fancy. Then we have Memento here, which I have not really played Memento a lot, but I think Memento is a very fun deck, which, yes, it's a combo heavy deck, but the combos can also be very different in terms on how you approach them, and your interactions are very, like, strange. Once again, this can create grind games, which I really love, and even though I have not played it a lot, I think this is actually a very fun deck and a very good deck concept, which I would place it over Dragon Link. I think here, for me, it fits, even though I have not really played it a lot myself. Same goes with the Mimigul deck, for example. Then we have the Orcus stuff here, which also have not really played a lot myself, but have seen a lot. I think this is a good mid deck, right? So the combo is not too long. It can play going second into a board in an okay way. The interactions are layered. You are using your own boss monster, which I always like. I think I would put it somewhere here. I know people that really love the Orcus stuff. From an artwork perspective, I don't love the Orcus stuff, but from the gameplay, I really have to give them something here in the mid category. Then we have Blue Eyes, which, okay, as once again, it's like Exodia, but even better. I really love playing Blue Eyes. It's really not a complicated deck. You always do the same thing, and then you kind of grind your opponent out. So it is a grind deck. I have to put it somewhere here in the fun category. I just loved playing with Blue Eyes, especially in Master Duel, where you have this one Blue Eyes that has this amazing animation, this one here, the original animation, which you could buy from this anniversary pack, which I did. And I don't know, I had a great time playing Blue Eyes. I definitely have to put this higher for me personally, just because this was this anime deck. I loved the Blue Eyes support, and I had a great time with it. Yeah, just great, I have to say. Then we have this Zubababa Gagaga stuff here. I think this is annoying. I really don't like the cards. I don't like how they play. I just, ugh. Then we have Draco Tail, which, yeah, it's obviously a new deck, but I think Draco Tail is kind of fun. You can interact with your opponent kind of in a fair way on their turn. Your first turn is kind of nice, not very combo heavy, and you can play into a board very, very nicely going second, which are all elements that I like. This can create a grind game, but definitely not on the same point as these decks that I have in front here. But honestly, I am really enjoying Draco Tail, and I have to put it somewhere, I don't know, I guess above Crystron. I can't really put it above Sprite. I really loved Sprite personally, so I have to put it below Sprite, but Draco Tail, a very fun deck, I have to say. Then we have Odeon here, which I personally liked. Going second is just, yeah, it's just a trap deck. Going second is annoying. Definitely not on the same level as the Labyrinth stuff here. For me, it's a nice mid-trap deck. Definitely better than Trap Tricks in my opinion, but also not something to write home about. I really love the idea that the traps become monsters and then they negate something. This, I think, is a really cool gimmick. And then we have Gem Knights, which once again go second deck. I like going second decks, but I really don't like Gem Knights. I hate everything about Gem Knights personally. I think it's a very boring deck, even though it's going second deck. But I don't know, the going first stuff that they made was also annoying. Floodgates, Baguska and stuff. I don't know. I really don't like Gem Knights. Let's put it somewhere here. Then we have Lunar Light. Oh, once again, a deck I really hate. This going first and making an undefeatable boss monster. This goes at the bottom for me. I hate these decks. Then we have Malice, which a lot of people hate Malice, but I personally really liked Malice, not to a point where Malice is like these decks here above, but definitely somewhere here in the mid category, I would say. I played this in the TCG. It's obviously a very strong deck going first, but can have like complicated combo lines, which at least that, right? At least your combo lines aren't always the same. I really love the artworks. I have like a thing for cyber stuff. So honestly, this might be my top of the mid category. Definitely had not as much fun with this as with the other decks here on top. But yeah, I really like Malice, I have to say. Then we have the Mitsurugi stuff, which Mitsurugi, yeah, this is somewhere here at the bottom of the mid category. This always works the same. It has good recursion, but the recursion is also so strong that your opponent normally won't break your board, and then it doesn't result in a grind game most likely. So honestly, the engine is obviously pretty strong, but I think in terms of having fun, it's more here on the lower side. I would definitely say I had more fun playing Centurion than Mitsurugi, honestly. We have Archmage, which I have not played a lot, but I know what the combo does. I think the artwork of the cards are kind of nice, and the idea is cool that if you have 3 different attributes or types, then you have your additional effects. Then again, this combo line is very similar all the time, so I don't really want to put this in boring because I think the way it is designed is kind of creative, so let's put it somewhere around here. Then we have Whitewoods, which personally, I don't know, this is like a super heavy combo deck. I think the cards, especially in the new ones, the Diabellstar Vengeance and the other Diabellstar of the White Witch, or how is it called, the big one, those are so cool from an artwork perspective. But honestly, even though I played this deck in the first stage and now in the second stage with the support waves, still not something that really, I don't know, I really enjoyed a lot, I have to say. I tried it out a few times. It never really stuck with me, honestly. And then we have Ryziel, which also became extremely boring quite fast. I love the artwork of the Ryziel cards, which is why I will bump them up a bit higher here. But this is pretty, yeah, you do a detonator. And at least Detonator's interruption is like kind of a strange interruption. I have to say, I like the Detonator as an idea, but I think placing it somewhere here is kind of okay. It was very boring, very always the same, but the artwork of the Ryziel cards are just, I mean, the Ryziel cards are some of the coolest looking Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I've ever seen, honestly. And I think this is my tier list here. We will do one most fun. And honestly, it's between those two here. Personally, and if I have to give it to one of these decks, I think I give it to Branded. I think Branded represents the best about Yu-Gi-Oh! the best out of all of these decks. I love the Vanquish Soul stuff, but Branded is representative of what is great about Yu-Gi-Oh! A deck that can make a good board going first, plays differently every time, so it's not like a linear combo deck, uses its own boss monsters, can create grind games, long game states where you have to really think about what you are doing, can play going second with its own engine without needing a lot of hand traps, because obviously you also have decks like, I don't know what, let's take a deck that had a lot of room for hand traps. I don't know, let's say Ryziel or Melis, they had kind of a lot of room for hand traps, other decks too, but obviously if you then stop your opponent with hand traps and then you break the board, yes, sure, that also works, but then you have not done it with your engine cards, and Branded kind of only uses its engine cards, which I think is just great. I think if they would create every deck with like a Branded in mind or maybe a Vanquish Soul in mind, I think we would have amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. Unfortunately, they from time to time also create decks like Lunar Light or the Red Retro deck, or I don't know, 7 Samurai, big Samurai stuff here, or any deck that, I don't know, makes an undefeatable boss monster, or I don't know why you would even make these decks, honestly. But yeah, this is my personal list, and now I'm very interested in your opinion. Let me know the top 5 decks that you find most fun, and also your opinion. What do you think of my list? Thanks for being here. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, hitting a thumbs up and the notification bell, and we will see each other in the next one.